The Veldarian observation fleet hung silently in Earth's orbit, their ships designed to remain undetected by human technology. Through the view screen of the command vessel, Chief Science Officer Zal Thrix watched the blue planet with 6 golden eyes that blinked in sequence. The bipedal species that ruled this world fascinated him. They were so fragile compared to most sentient races the Veldarians had studied. No protective exoskeletons, minimal fur, thin skin easily damaged by their own environment, and completely helpless in temperature extremes. Fascinating creatures, Zalthric said to no one in particular as he reviewed the latest data. So physically weak, yet they've dominated their planet. Commander Prelxus approached, his silver uniform gleaming under the ship's lights. The High Council grows impatient. They want to know if Earth will make a suitable colony. Earth has abundant resources, Zalthrix replied. The question is how to deal with the humans. The Veldarians had been watching Earth for 50 years. Their homeworld, with its average temperature of 95 degrees, was overcrowded. They needed new territory, and Earth had everything they wanted, except for its climate and its human population. Our simulations suggest a solution, Zalthrix continued, bringing up a holographic display. Humans cannot survive extreme cold. Their bodies shut down at temperatures we find merely refreshing. The display showed a weather model of Earth with massive storm systems covering the northern continents. We can use our atmospheric manipulators to create winter conditions beyond anything they've experienced. Their infrastructure will collapse. The survivors will be desperate for help that we can provide in exchange for their cooperation. Prelaxis studied the simulation. Begin the operation. Far below on Earth, Jack Winters zipped up his heavy coat and stepped out onto the porch of his ranger cabin. At 42, Jack had spent most of his adult life in the forests of northern Minnesota. The tall, broad-shouldered man with a thick brown beard and watchful blue eyes knew something wasn't right about the sky tonight. Strange lights had flickered between the clouds for the past 3 nights. The meteorologists on the news were puzzled by the sudden shift in weather patterns. They kept using words like unprecedented and anomalous. Jack's satellite phone buzzed in his pocket. It was his boss at the Park Service. "Jack, have you seen the forecast?" Linda asked without greeting. "Looking at those strange clouds right now," he replied. "What's going on?" "They're saying it might hit -60 by tomorrow night, with 3 feet of snow. Nothing like this has ever been recorded here, not even close. We need to close the park and check on anyone who might be out there." Jack frowned. "That can't be right, it's only October." "I know. They're calling it a polar displacement event or something. Just get any stragglers out of there and then hunker down at your station. The roads will be impassable soon." After hanging up, Jack stared at the strange, swirling clouds. Something deep in his gut told him this was more than just weird weather. 2,000 miles away at the Arctic Research Station, Dr. Olivia Martinez rubbed her tired eyes as she checked her equipment for the 5th time. The compact woman with curly black hair and warm brown eyes had been monitoring atmospheric conditions for the past decade, but she had never seen readings like these. "This isn't possible," she muttered to herself. Her colleague, Aaron Wright, looked up from his own computer. "What's wrong?" "These energy signatures in the upper atmosphere. They're organized, almost like a pattern." Before she could explain further, the lights flickered and went out. The backup generator kicked in a moment later, but their more sensitive equipment remained dark. "That's strange," Aaron said. "The system was just serviced last month." Olivia walked to the window. The research station was designed to withstand extreme Arctic conditions, but the wind howling outside sounded stronger than anything she had experienced in her 3 years at the post. "Aaron, what's the temperature reading outside?" Aaron checked the manual thermometer mounted by the door. "That can't be right." "What does it say?" "It says -87, but that's impossible." Olivia felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. "Call the other stations. We need to know if they're seeing the same thing." But the communication system was down too. They were cut off. Within 48 hours, the situation had deteriorated across the northern hemisphere. Jack had managed to rescue 3 hikers who had been trapped by the sudden storm, bringing them back to his cabin just as the temperature plummeted to levels that made exposed skin freeze in seconds. "I've never seen anything like this," said Megan, one of the hikers, as she huddled near the wood stove. "It's like the air itself is turning solid." Jack had stocked his cabin well, with enough food and firewood to last several weeks. The power had gone out hours ago, but the cabin's thick log walls and his preparations kept them relatively comfortable. "The Weather Service is calling it the Century Storm," said Dale, another hiker, looking at his phone. "Cell networks are still up for now, but the internet is spotty." Jack nodded as he prepared a pot of coffee on the wood stove. "My dad always said to prepare for the worst weather you can imagine, then double it. Never thought I'd need to triple it." At the Arctic Research Station, Olivia and her team of 4 had moved all essential operations to the innermost room, conserving heat as the temperature outside dropped to -120 degrees. The station was designed for extreme cold, but not this extreme. "The main generator is failing," reported Wei Chen, their engineer. "Whatever's causing this storm is affecting the equipment too." Olivia nodded, deep in thought. She had managed to save some of the atmospheric data before the systems crashed, and what she saw troubled her deeply. "These patterns aren't random," she said. "Look at this frequency analysis. It's almost like a signal being transmitted through the atmosphere itself." The team gathered around her laptop. "You're saying someone is causing this storm?" Aaron asked, skeptically. "I'm saying this isn't natural," Olivia replied. "Nothing about these patterns follows any known atmospheric physics. It's too organized, too precise." Meanwhile, in orbit, Southrix watched the developing catastrophe with scientific interest. The humans were dying by the thousands as power grids failed across continents. "The atmospheric modification is exceeding expectations," he reported to Commander Parallaxis. "Human infrastructure is collapsing faster than predicted. At this rate, we estimate their global civilization will be reduced to isolated pockets within 2 weeks." Parallaxis nodded with satisfaction. "Excellent. Prepare the diplomatic team. Once their governments collapse, we will offer our assistance, in exchange for territorial concessions, of course." But as the aliens watched the unfolding crisis, something unexpected began to happen. Instead of mass panic and collapse, humans began to adapt with remarkable speed. In his Minnesota cabin, Jack had organized his unexpected guests into a survival team. "We need to prepare for the possibility that this storm isn't ending anytime soon," he told them. And across the frozen north, thousands of other humans were coming to the same conclusion, facing the impossible cold not with surrender, but with determination and ingenuity that the watching aliens could not comprehend. 2 weeks into what news reports called the Century Storm, much of the northern hemisphere lay buried under 20 feet of snow. Temperatures across North America, Europe, and northern Asia hovered around -80 degrees. Cities had gone dark as power grids failed. Yet the Veldarian observers watched in growing confusion as humans refused to die as their models had predicted. In Chicago, Sam Miller stood on the roof of his apartment building, surveying the neighborhood below. The former military engineer had spent the past week organizing his community. When the power first failed, panic had threatened to take hold. But Sam had seen disasters before during his tours overseas. He knew that survival depended on cooperation. "How are we looking on the generators?" Sam asked Lisa, his neighbor who had become his right-hand person in the crisis. "The bicycle power system is working better than expected," she replied, her breath visible in the frigid air despite the protective face mask Sam had designed. "We've got 5 stations now. People take shifts pedaling. It's enough to keep emergency communications running and heat the community spaces for a few hours each day." Sam nodded with satisfaction. When the temperature had dropped to impossible levels, he had gathered everyone in his 10-story building into the central floors. Then he had shown them how to build insulating walls using books, newspapers, and clothing. For heat, he had modified stationary bicycles to generate electricity. "The hunting party is back," Lisa said, pointing to 3 figures trudging through the snow below. Sam smiled behind his mask. The team had adapted night vision technology from old smartphones to track animals through the blizzard. Another innovation, born of desperation. "Let's go help them with whatever they caught," he said. "Everyone gets a fair share." In rural Montana, Kate Russell pulled her specialized snow goggles over her eyes and stepped out into the howling wind. The fifth-generation farmer had turned her property into a refuge for over 200 people from surrounding areas. Her 3-grain silos had been converted into heated living quarters using techniques her great-grandparents had developed during the Dust Bowl years. "Morning patrol," she called to Ben, who was manning the reinforced gate they had built to keep out the increasingly desperate wolves and other predators drawn to the scent of humans and livestock. "Careful out there," Ben replied, handing her a radio. "Storms picked up again." Kate nodded and set out to check their perimeter. Her farm had become a village unto itself. The livestock had been moved into the main barn where their body heat helped keep the temperature manageable. People worked in shifts to care for the animals, maintain the wood-burning heating system, and patrol the boundaries. Using knowledge passed down through generations of harsh winters, Kate had implemented strict rationing and organization. No one ate alone. No one worked alone. No one suffered alone. The community survived together. Aboard the Veldarian flagship, Commander Prelixus stared at the holographic displays with growing concern. The human death toll had plateaued far below their projections. "This defies explanation," he said to Zalthrix. "They should be begging for salvation by now. Their cities should be tombs of ice." Zalthrix studied the data with all 6 eyes blinking in sequence. "They're adapting faster than any species we've encountered. Look at these thermal signatures." The display showed bright clusters of heat throughout the frozen landscape. "They're creating community warming centers," Zalthrix continued. "They're sharing resources rather than competing for them. And here, look at this." The display zoomed in on Chicago, showing tiny moving dots of heat. "They've developed new transportation methods to travel across the snow. They're using their primitive technology in ways our simulations never predicted." Prelixus frowned. "Increase the intensity of the weather manipulation. Drop the temperature another 20 degrees. Let's see how they handle that." At the Arctic Research Station, Dr. Olivia Martinez had confirmed her suspicions. The storm was artificial. After their main systems failed, she and her team had jury-rigged a series of antennas around the station, detecting patterns in the atmospheric disturbances that could only be artificial. "It's definitely a signal," she told her colleagues, as they huddled around a small table in their makeshift command center. "Something or someone is manipulating our atmosphere, creating these temperature drops." "But why?" asked Wei Chen. "And how do we tell anyone? Communications are still down." Olivia studied their hand-drawn map where they had plotted the pattern of the storm's intensity. "We need to boost our signal. If I'm right, whoever is doing this is using our own satellites to amplify their control." Aaron looked up from where he was repairing equipment. "We might be able to piggyback on their signal, use their own network to broadcast our message." "Exactly," Olivia said. "We need to warn people this isn't a natural disaster, it's an attack." Back in Minnesota, Jack Winters had expanded his operation. The ranger cabin now served as headquarters for a network of rescue operations spanning 3 counties. Using snowmobiles modified to run in the extreme cold and CB radios, Jack coordinated with other survival outposts. "Harper's Mill needs medical supplies," said Megan, who had stayed and become Jack's chief communications officer. "Their situation is getting desperate." Jack studied their map where they tracked known survivor groups. "That's a 6-hour journey in these conditions. The temperature's dropping again." "I'll go," offered Dale, who had proven himself an excellent navigator in the whiteout conditions. "We go in pairs," Jack reminded him. "I'll come with you. Megan, you're in charge until we return." They prepared their modified snowmobiles, loading the precious medical supplies. As they worked, Jack noticed something strange in the sky, a flicker of light unlike the usual storm patterns. "Do you see that?" he asked Dale, pointing. A bright object was descending through the clouds, trailing fire. It wasn't a meteor or aircraft. It moved too deliberately. "Let's check it out," Jack decided. It's on our way to Harper's Mill. 3 hours later, they reached the crash site. What they found changed everything. The object was clearly not human-made. Its metal surface shimmered with an iridescent quality no Earth material possessed. Part of its hull had cracked open in the impact, and inside, Jack peered through the opening, his flashlight revealing a creature unlike anything he had ever seen. Humanoid but alien, with golden eyes that blinked in sequence. The being was, clearly suffering in the cold its breathing labored. "It's dying," Dale whispered. "What do we do?" Jack didn't hesitate. "We help it. Whatever it is, we can't let it die out here." As they carefully extracted the alien from the wreckage, Jack wondered what this meant. Was this connected to the impossible storm? To the lights he'd seen before the weather changed? One thing was certain. The world had become much larger and stranger than anyone had imagined. Meanwhile, in orbit, the Veldarians detected the loss of their scout ship. "We've lost contact with Scout Vessel 12, reported a sensor officer. "Commander?" Prelxus narrowed his eyes. "The crash occurred in an area with significant human activity. If they find Ventral, the humans can't possibly understand our technology," Zalthrix assured him. "And Ventral will perish in these temperatures long before humans can reach the crash site." But down on the frozen Earth, Jack and Dale were already carefully wrapping the alien in thermal blankets, fighting to save a life that had come from the stars, unaware that they were already defying alien expectations simply by surviving in conditions that should have killed them days ago. By the third month of the century storm, humans had reached new levels of adaptation. The initial shock had passed, and in its place grew a stubborn determination that baffled the watching Veldarians. In Toronto, university students led by Nick Collins had transformed their campus into a survival research center. The skinny engineering graduate student with wild red hair had always been creative, but the crisis had turned his ideas into life-saving innovations. "The key is trapping body heat," Nick explained to a group of volunteers in what had once been the university cafeteria. "Our bodies generate heat naturally. We just need to keep it from escaping." He held up a vest made from everyday materials: bubble wrap, aluminum foil, and fabric from old curtains. This was the 10th version of what people now called Collins wraps. "This design keeps you warm in temperatures as low as -100 degrees, Nick said proudly. "And you can make it with materials found in any home." Someone had brought a working ham radio to the campus. Each night, Nick broadcast instructions for making the thermal garments. Other ham radio operators picked up the broadcasts and spread the information. Within weeks, Collins wraps were being worn across North America and Europe. In Alaska, where temperatures had dropped to -150 degrees, Inuit communities led by Elder Grace Nyack welcomed thousands of refugees from southern cities. The tiny 70-year-old woman with a lined face and wise eyes had overseen the creation of a massive network of ice shelters. "Our ancestors lived here for thousands of years without electricity or modern heating," Grace told the newcomers. "The ice is not our enemy. It can protect us." Under her guidance, people learned to build sophisticated snow houses that used body heat to create surprisingly warm living spaces. They made oil lamps from cans and fabric that provided both light and heat. They used animal fat previously discarded by modern society as a precious resource for food, fuel, and waterproofing. "Watch how the snow falls," Grace instructed, a group learning to navigate the blizzard conditions. "Feel the wind on your face. The storm speaks to those who listen." The knowledge exchange between the Inuit elders and scientists from southern universities led to new hybrid technologies. Traditional animal hide clothing was reinforced with modern insulating materials. Ancient hunting techniques were combined with improvised technology to track game through the endless white. Aboard the Veldarian flagship, Commander Prelaxis could not hide his frustration as he addressed the High Council via holographic communication. "The humans continue to defy our models," he reported. "They are not only surviving, they're creating new technologies specifically adapted to the conditions we created to destroy them." The eldest council member leaned forward, her multiple eyes blinking with concern. These creatures seem more resilient than we anticipated. Perhaps we should reconsider our approach. Give me more time, Prolexis insisted. We've increased the storm's intensity again. They cannot endure forever. But Chief Science Officer Zalthrix was beginning to have doubts. There's something remarkable about these humans, he told his research team, as they studied footage from their observation drones. They're using the very ice and snow as building materials. They're traveling across frozen wastes using tools made from scavenged parts. They're even extracting drinking water from the snow and generating power from wind turbines they've built from abandoned vehicles. One of the junior scientists pointed to a thermal image on the screen. Look at this settlement in Minnesota. They've expanded significantly in the past week. Zalthrix zoomed in on the image. The human outpost showed signs of sophisticated organization. He could see regular patrol patterns, centralized heating systems, and even primitive greenhouses constructed from salvaged materials. And our scout ship that crashed in that region? Zalthrix asked. Still no communication from Ventral, the junior scientist replied. By our calculations, he should have perished in the cold within hours of the crash. Jack Winters carefully adjusted the heating elements around the alien's recovery chamber. The being they had rescued from the crash site, who had identified himself as Ventral, was slowly regaining strength. Jack and his team had constructed a special heated room in the basement of the ranger station using parts salvaged from broken furnaces and water heaters. How are you feeling today? Jack asked. Ventral's 6 golden eyes blinked in sequence. A gesture Jack had learned meant the alien was thinking. Better, Ventral replied in halting English. He had learned the language with surprising speed. Your heating system is most effective. Jack smiled. Dale figured out how to boost its output by 30% yesterday. He's good with machines. Ventral studied Jack with what seemed like puzzlement. Your species continues to surprise me. You should not be able to function in these temperatures. Humans are adaptable, Jack replied simply. Then he asked the question that had been on his mind since they'd found the alien. Ventral, is your people responsible for this storm? The alien's eyes blinked rapidly. A sign of distress, Jack had learned. Yes, Ventral admitted finally. The weather manipulation was meant to clear the planet for colonization. Our models predicted mass human casualties. Jack nodded, having suspected as much. Well, your models were wrong about us. At the Arctic Research Station, Dr. Olivia Martinez had finally managed to boost their communication signal. Using parts from their weather monitoring equipment, she and her team had created a powerful transmitter that could piggyback on the alien signal they had detected. It's working, Aaron reported excitedly. We're getting responses from government facilities in Colorado. Olivia leaned over the radio. This is Dr. Olivia Martinez at the Arctic Research Station. We have evidence that the Century Storm is artificially created. I repeat, the storm is not natural. It appears to be generated by some kind of atmospheric manipulation technology. The voice that responded was clear and official. This is Captain Diane Howard, Air Force Special Operations Weather Team. We've suspected as much. Can you transmit your evidence? Our digital systems are down, Olivia replied. But we can describe what we found and how we found it. For the next hour, Olivia detailed their discovery. The unnatural patterns in the storm, the strange energy signatures, the mathematical precision of the temperature drops. We need to get you and your data to our facility, Captain Howard said, when Olivia finished. I'm dispatching a team with specialized transport. They should reach you in 3 days, weather permitting. Olivia looked at her tired team. For months they had worked with minimal resources, fighting to understand the impossible storm while simply staying alive. We'll be ready, she promised. Across the frozen continents, humans continued to innovate. In Japan, researchers developed microscale fusion reactors that could be built using commonly available materials. In Europe, massive underground farm complexes ensured food production could continue, regardless of surface conditions. And everywhere, a message began to spread through ham radio networks. Morse code tapped on pipes between buildings, and even old-fashioned written notes carried by couriers on skis and snowshoes. The storm is not natural, we are not alone. And we are not defeated, As Ventral recovered in Jack's heated chamber, the alien began to share crucial information about the Veldarian weather control technology. With each passing day, he grew more impressed by human resilience and more troubled by his own people's plans. "Your kind adapts faster than any species we have encountered," Ventral told Jack one evening. "Perhaps there is a way to end this conflict without more suffering." Jack nodded thoughtfully. "If we can disrupt the weather control, force your leaders to talk to us, maybe we can find a solution that works for both our peoples." Neither of them realized that far to the north, Dr. Martinez and her team were already laying the groundwork for exactly such a plan that would soon bring humans and Veldarians face to face in a confrontation that would determine the future of Earth. 6 months into the century storm, humans had moved beyond mere survival to active resistance. The knowledge that the devastating weather was an alien attack had spread across the frozen continents, uniting people in a common purpose. Captain Diane Howard stood at the window of the underground military facility near Denver, watching as teams tested modified communication equipment in the brutal cold. The tall, dark-skinned woman with short gray hair had spent 20 years in Air Force Special Operations, but nothing had prepared her for this mission. "Dr. Martinez, I think we're ready for the final test," she called over her shoulder. Olivia Martinez looked up from her workstation. After being rescued from the Arctic Research Station by Captain Howard's team, she had been working day and night to develop a method of disrupting the Veldarian weather control signals. "Let's do it," Olivia said, joining the captain at the window. Outside, technicians activated a device that looked like a satellite dish combined with parts from a radio tower and a weather radar. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, above them, the swirling storm clouds began to thin. A patch of blue sky appeared, the first anyone had seen in months. "It works," Olivia exclaimed, her tired face breaking into a smile. "The counter signal is disrupting their control." Captain Howard nodded with grim satisfaction. "How long until we can deploy these devices globally?" "We have teams building them in 20 countries already," Olivia replied. "The designs are simple, enough that they can be constructed with available materials. Within 2 weeks, we should be able to create gaps in the storm large enough to seriously hamper their weather manipulation." But both women knew this was just the beginning. Creating holes in the alien-made storm wouldn't be enough. They needed to send a message to the Veldarians, a message they couldn't ignore. In Minnesota, Jack Winters and Ventral had made a breakthrough of their own. Using parts from the crashed scout ship combined with human technology, they had constructed a communication device capable of reaching the Veldarian fleet. "This will allow you to speak directly to Commander Prelixus," Ventral explained as they made final adjustments to the device. Jack considered this. Over the past months, he had come to trust the alien. Ventral had shared valuable information about Veldarian technology and society. "Do you think he'll listen?" Jack asked. Ventral's eyes blinked in what Jack now recognized as a thoughtful pattern. "My commander is not unreasonable, but he answers to the High Council. They were determined to claim your world." "Then we need to show them that isn't an option," Jack replied firmly. "We need to coordinate with the other human resistance groups." Using a network of ham radios and modified cell phones, Jack contacted Captain Howard's facility. Within days, a plan formed, one that would combine Dr. Martinez's signal disruption technology with Ventral's communication device. In Chicago, Sam Miller received the encrypted message detailing the plan. His neighborhood had grown into a thriving community of over 5,000 people, with working electricity generated by an ingenious system of wind turbines built from car parts. "They want us to build one of these signal disruptors," he told Lisa, showing her the designs. Lisa studied the plans. "We have most of the materials. The university group can help with the specialized components." Sam nodded. "And once it's active, we need to be ready for whatever comes next. Either more extreme weather or possibly direct alien contact." Throughout the frozen world, similar conversations were happening. In Alaska, Grace Nyack mobilized her community to build signal disruptors disguised as traditional structures. In Toronto, Nick Collins modified his latest thermal clothing to include protection against potential new weapons the aliens might deploy. In the farming community in Montana, Kate, Russell received the message while checking their underground greenhouse, where they grew enough food to feed their 200 residents. "So the storm is alien-made," she said to Ben after reading the encrypted instructions. "I always knew something wasn't right about it." Ben nodded. "The plans say we need to build this disruption device using parts from satellite dishes and radio equipment." Kate thought for a moment. The Anderson farm had a satellite internet system, and the old radio tower by the highway could provide the rest. As humans prepared their countermeasure, the Veldarians faced a crisis of their own. Commander Prelixus stared at the holographic display, showing failing weather control systems across Earth's surface. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "The humans should not have the technology to interfere with our atmospheric manipulators." Zalthric studied the data with growing concern. "They're using our own signal patterns against us. They've somehow analyzed the frequency and created a counter-signal." "And there's still no word from Ventral or the crash site?" Prelixus asked. "None," Zalthrix confirmed. "But we're detecting unusual activity in that region. The humans may have found the ship." Before Prelixus could respond, a communication officer interrupted. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the surface. It's on our secure frequency." Prelaxus's eyes widened in surprise. "Put it through." The holographic display shifted to show a human face, Jack Winters, though the Veldarians didn't know his name yet. "This is Jack Winters representing the United Human Resistance," Jack said, his voice clear and firm. "We know you're responsible for the weather manipulation attacking our planet. We've begun countering your technology, as you've no doubt noticed." Prelixus stared in shock at the human. "How are you transmitting on this frequency?" "We had help," Jack replied simply. "You lost one of your scouts. We found him. He's alive and has been quite informative." The commander's expression darkened. "Ventral is a traitor." "Ventral is a survivor like us," Jack corrected, "and he's helped us understand that this conflict doesn't need to continue. We're prepared to negotiate, but the weather attacks must stop." Prelaxus laughed, a strange sound to human ears. "Negotiate? Your species has no leverage. Yes, you've managed to disrupt some of our control signals, but we can simply increase power to our atmospheric manipulators. The storm will worsen. You cannot endure forever." Jack's expression remained calm. "Before you make that decision, you should know that we're not just disrupting your signals. Dr. Martinez, would you explain what else we've prepared?" The view shifted to show Olivia in the Denver facility. "Your weather manipulation technology relies on a network of signal relays using our satellites. We've not only disrupted those signals, we've reprogrammed them. If we activate our full countermeasure, your entire network will overload. The feedback loop will disable your fleet's primary systems for at least 72 hours. This was a bluff. They couldn't actually create such a feedback loop yet. But the Veldarians didn't know that. Zalthrix whispered urgently to Prelaxus. "Commander, if they can truly create such a feedback loop, our ships would be vulnerable. We should at least hear their terms." Prelaxus hesitated, then nodded stiffly. "What do you propose, human?" "A meeting," Jack said. "Face to face. Representatives from both sides. We discuss a solution that doesn't involve freezing our planet or destroying your fleet." After a long pause, Prelaxus agreed. "One cycle. We will meet in one of your cycles. Send coordinates." The transmission ended and Jack exhaled slowly. Their bluff had worked. Now they needed to make the most of the opportunity. "Will they honor the agreement?" he asked Ventral, who had been watching from off-screen. "Prelaxus is proud but practical," Ventral replied. "He will come. But be cautious. He will also be preparing alternatives should negotiations fail." Jack nodded grimly. "So will we." Across Earth, humans continued building their disruption devices, preparing for either peaceful resolution or continued resistance. The fate of the planet would be decided in 24 hours, at a meeting between species who had tried to destroy each other without ever having met face to face. The day of the meeting arrived with an unusual calm in the storm. The negotiation site had been chosen carefully, Dr. Martinez's Arctic Research Station, where the alien weather manipulation had first been discovered. As humans prepared for the historic encounter, the century storm paused as if the planet itself was holding its breath. Jack Winters checked his specialized cold weather gear one last time. The temperature outside remained at -100 degrees, but the humans had grown accustomed to such extremes. Beside him, Ventril adjusted his heating suit, which allowed him to survive the cold that his species found unbearable. "Are you ready?" Jack asked the alien who had become an ally and friend. Ventril's golden eyes blinked in sequence. "I am nervous. My people do not look kindly on those who betray the mission." "You didn't betray anyone," Jack assured him. "You saw that there was a better way forward than conflict." Dr. Olivia Martinez entered the room, followed by Captain Howard. Both women wore the latest version of Nick Collins' thermal gear, reinforced with additional protective layers. "The Veldarian shuttle has entered the atmosphere," Captain Howard reported. "They'll land in 20 minutes. Olivia looked around at the small human delegation. Besides the 4 of them in the room, representatives from other survivor communities were joining by radio link. Sam from Chicago, Kate from Montana, Nick from Toronto, and Grace from the Alaskan community. "Remember the plan," Olivia said. "We need to show strength but also openness to cooperation. The signal disruptors around the world are ready to activate if negotiations fail." Jack nodded. "Let's hope it doesn't come to that." 20 minutes. Later, they stood in the cleared area outside the research station. The Veldarian shuttle descended silently from the clouds, its sleek surface gleaming despite the dim Arctic light. As it landed, ice crystals swirled around its hull. The shuttle's door opened with a soft hiss, releasing warm air that immediately froze in the frigid atmosphere. Commander Pralaxis emerged first, followed by Chief Science Officer Zalthrix and 2 other Veldarians. All wore protective suits similar to Ventril's but more elaborate. Pralaxis spotted Ventril standing among the humans, and his eyes blinked rapidly in what Jack had learned was anger. "So it's true," the commander said. "You helped the humans." Ventril stepped forward. "I learned from them, Commander. They are not what we thought." Captain Howard gestured toward the research station. "Let's continue this conversation inside. Even with our adaptations, this cold is challenging." The mixed group moved into the station's main room, which had been prepared for the meeting. The humans removed their outer protective layers, revealing their normal clothing underneath. The Veldarians kept their suits on, but adjusted the settings to a lower protection level. "I must admit," Zalthrix said, looking at the humans with scientific curiosity, "your species has demonstrated remarkable adaptability. Our models predicted total infrastructure collapse within 2 weeks of the century storm's beginning." "We're full of surprises," Jack replied with a small smile. "Commander," Pralaxis remained stern, "your resistance is impressive but ultimately futile. We have studied thousands of species across the galaxy. None have successfully opposed Veldarian expansion." "Maybe it's time for that to change," Olivia suggested. "We've proven we can disrupt your weather control technology. We don't want conflict, but we will defend our home." The commander's eyes narrowed. "You speak boldly for a species with such limited space travel. Our fleet could simply destroy your major population centers from orbit." "You could," Captain Howard acknowledged. "But that would damage the very planet you want to colonize. And, based on what Ventril has told us about your society, the High Council prefers intact resources and minimal conflict." Zalthrix leaned toward his commander. "The humans have clearly studied us through Ventril. Their insights are accurate." For several tense moments, Pralaxis was silent. Then he turned to Ventril. "You believe these humans worthy of respect?" "I believe they have earned the right to negotiate as equals," Ventril replied. "In the months I've lived among them, I've seen them adapt to conditions that would kill most species we know. They share resources rather than compete. They protect their vulnerable rather than abandon them. These are values our own history honors." Pralaxis considered this. "What do you propose, humans?" Jack glanced at his colleagues, then spoke. "We understand your need for expansion. Earth is large, with many different environments. We're willing to discuss arrangements that could allow Veldarian settlements in certain regions, particularly those that match your preferred climate, which humans find less habitable anyway. Coexistence? Prelaxis sounded surprised. With clear boundaries and technology exchange, Olivia added, your people have advanced science we could learn from, and clearly we have adaptive strategies that might benefit you. Zalthric seemed intrigued. A fascinating possibility. No species has ever proposed such an arrangement before. Most species don't survive the initial terraforming phase, Prelaxis noted dryly. Captain Howard leaned forward. The first step would be ending the weather manipulation and allowing Earth's natural climate to return. The commander studied the humans carefully. And if we refuse? Jack gestured to the communications equipment, where lights showed connections to communities around the world. We activate every signal disruptor simultaneously. Our scientists believe the feedback would disable your fleet's systems for days, possibly longer. This was still partly a bluff, but the humans had prepared as if it wasn't. Every major survivor community around the world stood ready to activate their devices. After a long silence, Prelaxis spoke. I will propose your terms to the High Council. Until their decision, we will reduce the storm's intensity as a gesture of good faith. Relief filled the room, though everyone remained cautious. This was just the beginning of negotiations, not the end. Over the next few weeks, the century storm began to subside. Temperatures rose gradually, though still far below normal. As the immediate threat eased, humans turned their adaptive technologies toward rebuilding. 3 months later, the High Council accepted a modified version of the human proposal. Certain regions of Earth, primarily in the hottest deserts and some tropical areas, would become Veldarian territories. In exchange, the aliens would share technologies that would help repair the damage caused by the century storm. Jack stood with Ventral on a hillside near his ranger station, watching as spring finally returned to Minnesota. The snow was melting, revealing green shoots beneath. Your people are helping us restore the natural weather patterns, Jack noted. The scientists say we should have normal seasons again within a year. Ventral nodded. And humans are helping my people understand adaptation. The cultural exchange has already led to improvements in our environmental systems. From enemies to allies, Jack mused. All because you crashed in the right place. No, Ventral corrected him. All because humans refused to be defeated by conditions that should have destroyed them. The Veldarian fleet has observed thousands of worlds and species, but never one that thrived in a disaster engineered specifically to destroy them. In the decade that followed, the relationship between humans and Veldarians grew into a true partnership. The Interspecies Adaptation Academy, founded by Jack Winters and Ventral, became famous throughout the galaxy. Representatives from dozens of alien civilizations came to Earth to learn how humans had survived the century storm. The image of humans building civilizations in conditions that would kill most sentient species became legendary. Earth was now known as the world of the adaptable ones, a planet whose inhabitants had turned a weapon aimed at their destruction into the catalyst for their greatest evolutionary leap forward. As Ventral often told new alien visitors as they shivered despite their environmental suits, if you want to understand humans, watch how they transform challenges into opportunities. The Veldarians sent them a storm to end their civilization. Instead, humans learned to dance in the blizzard.